I never imagined that a single moment, a breath caught between life and death, could flip my entire world upside down. That night, the rooftop wind was so cold it felt like it could cut through bone. And there she was, standing at the edge, a girl in a white dress fluttering like a surrendering flag. When she turned to face me, her eyes were red from crying, but there was defiance in them too. Like the world had never given her a chance to be soft, so she chose to be steel instead. And me? I was just a nobody. A junior assistant at a tech company, invisible to most people. But somehow, in that moment, I became the only person standing between her and the end. It was nearly midnight when I stumbled out of the office building, exhausted from a 14-hour shift. I was on my way to the bus stop when I saw the emergency stairwell door ajar. Something about it felt off. I don't know why, but I followed my gut and climbed up. And that's when I saw her. She was standing on the edge of the rooftop, her arms wide open, the city lights flickering below like a million broken promises. Her long black hair blew wildly in the wind, and for a moment, she looked like she belonged to the night, beautiful, tragic, and completely alone. "Don't!" I yelled without thinking. My voice cracked, but she turned. Our eyes locked. "Go away," she said, her voice hollow, like something inside her had already died. But I didn't. I stepped closer. "I won't pretend to understand," I said gently, "but I've been where you are." She laughed, bitter and broken. "You? You have no idea who I am." She was right. I didn't. Not then. But I would. And saving her that night was the beginning of everything. I took another cautious step, palms raised, the tremor in my voice hidden beneath the whistling wind. "If you jump, the last thing you'll feel is regret, not relief," I whispered. Her chin lifted as though the skyline itself had dared her to prove me wrong. A tear caught on her lashes, then vanished in the gust. "Tell me your name," I said. "Why should it matter?" she shot back. "Because names tether us to the world. Lose that and there's nothing left to come back to." For an endless heartbeat, the night hung silent. Then, barely audible, "Olivia." I breathed the syllables like a fragile secret. "I'm Ethan." A single syllable could have shattered the tension, instead, it stitched the distance between us. She wavered. I extended my hand, fingers numb in the cold, but steady. "Let me walk you back. Whatever storm you're in, I'll stand under it with you." Her lips trembled. She took half a step, just enough for me to close the gap, wrap my coat around her shoulders, and guide her away from the precipice. Her knees buckled. I caught her, feeling the rapid flutter of her pulse through the thin cotton of her dress. Her entire body quaked, adrenaline combusting into shock. I eased her onto the concrete, keeping my arm around her until her breathing evened out. Sirens howled in the distance, someone had called them, or maybe an alarm had triggered when the door was propped open. Blue lights stained the rooftop, and officers approached, but Olivia shrank back as if they were phantoms reaching for her soul. "It's all right," I murmured. "They're here to help." She clutched my sleeve like a lifeline. At the hospital, fluorescent light bled into my eyes while I filled out forms with information she was too exhausted to provide. She refused to call family. Not even a friend. A nurse offered a knowing glance and pressed a cup of bitter coffee into my hand. Hours dragged by until dawn leaked scarlet over the horizon. Eventually, she dozed off, fragile behind the glass of a private room. I was gathering my things to leave when a tall, silver-haired man swept into the corridor, flanked by two stern-faced assistants. His suit looked handmade, the kind you could try on but never afford. He paused when he saw me, eyes narrowing with the precise calculation of a banker scanning a ledger. "Who are you?" The question cracked like a whip. "Ethan Miller," I answered, suddenly self-conscious of the ink smudged on my collar. "I found Olivia on the rooftop in." His expression tightened. "You're the one who stopped her." Yes." He strode past me into her room. Through the window I saw his posture crumble. He touched her cheek with a tenderness that didn't match the chill in his earlier tone. A nurse whispered something about vitals, medication. When he emerged, his voice was hushed steel. My daughter owes her life to you. He extended a crisp business card. Jonathan Blake, Chairman, Orion Dynamics. Orion. The company whose logo hovered over every floor of the building where I worked as an anonymous assistant. My thoughts tangled. The chairman's daughter had been the girl on the ledge. I had saved the heiress to the empire that signed my meager paycheck. I want you at the house tonight, he continued. 7 sharp. Driver will collect you. It wasn't an invitation, it was an executive order. I arrived in second-hand slacks that suddenly felt 2 sizes too small. The mansion loomed like a cathedral dedicated to profit, marble floors, oil portraits, chandeliers dripping crystal. A butler guided me to a study lined with mahogany shelves. Jonathan Blake stood by the window, city lights glittering behind him. Beside him, Olivia sat curled in an armchair, pale but composed. She looked at me, something fragile and grateful flickering behind her eyes. Hi, she whispered. Hi, I echoed, heartbeat stumbling. Her father cleared his throat. Mr. Miller. You prevented a tragedy. I compensate loyalty. He slid a folder across the desk. A promotion, a salary with more zeros than I'd ever seen, and relocation to the executive wing, impossible gifts tied to one unspoken condition: keep Olivia safe. I swallowed. I didn't do it for a reward. Humor me, Jonathan said. Accept, or find a different job elsewhere. Orion is everywhere, as you know. Olivia flinched. I sensed the unspoken plea in her eyes, stay. So I nodded. Inked my signature. Sealed my fate. From that night forward I entered a world polished to blinding shine yet cracked beneath the surface. At work, whispers followed me, the mailroom nobody who vaulted into corporate heaven overnight. Executives measured me like a Trojan horse. And Olivia, she wandered the penthouse corridors like a ghost stitched together by couture gowns. Some evenings she'd escape to the roof garden, and we'd sit beneath glimmering constellations, trading scars we couldn't show anyone else. One rainy afternoon she found me buried under spreadsheets in my new corner office. She dropped a vintage record on my desk, the Smiths, her favorite. You look like you needed rescuing, she teased. Her laugh, soft but genuine, struck something bright inside me. Days blurred into weeks. Board meetings, charity galas, clandestine rooftop conversations. With every shared smile, the distance between employee and heiress dissolved. Yet darkness coiled at the edges. I noticed bruises of exhaustion under her eyes, missed therapy sessions, hushed arguments with her father behind closed doors. One evening, she slipped into my office, hands trembling, a confidential file tucked under her coat. Ethan, I need you to see this. Financial reports, hidden ledgers, evidence of embezzlement inside Orion. Not her father's doing, but someone close. Exposure could topple the company, destroy thousands of jobs, tarnish Jonathan Blake's legacy. Why trust me with this? I asked. Because you saved my life before you knew my name. I can't save my father's without yours. Fear clawed at my chest, but I nodded. Together we mapped the underground currents of betrayal. Each revelation felt like stepping deeper into a labyrinth where every turn could mean ruin. Meanwhile, rumors swirled in the boardroom. The chairman's daughter was unstable, controlled by the new golden boy aide, me. One night, Olivia's car skidded on a mountain road, brakes sabotaged. She escaped with minor injuries. The message was clear. I moved into the mansion's guest wing to protect her. Sleepless, I paced the hallways at night like a sentry, listening for shadows that breathed too loudly. The final piece clicked into place during the annual Orion Summit, a black tie affair beneath chandeliers identical to the one in Jonathan's study. Olivia and I stood on stage as her father announced a new mental health initiative, her project, born from the rooftop's ashes. Applause thundered. But as champagne flutes clinked, I spotted CFO Richard Hayes edging toward the server exit, phone pressed to his ear. I followed. In the service corridor his words hissed through the receiver, transfer tonight, Blake won't see it coming. I stepped from the shadows. Our eyes met. His face blanched. An hour later, forensic accountants froze a clandestine wire of $30 million. Security detained him as the orchestra played oblivious waltzes. Jonathan Blake's gaze swept the ballroom until it found me. His nod, everything unsaid yet understood. After Hayes was escorted away, Olivia and I slipped onto a quiet balcony. City lights pooled below like molten gold. She leaned against me, heartbeat steady beneath silk. "You didn't just save me," she murmured. "You taught me how to fight for my own life." I brushed a stray tear from her cheek. "You saved mine too, Olivia. You gave it meaning." Somewhere inside, the boy who once felt invisible recognized the man who now mattered, to someone who mattered to him. The wind that night was gentle, carrying no threats, only promise. And with dawn creeping over the horizon, we stepped back inside, no longer rescuer and rescued, but two souls standing on the ledge together, choosing life, choosing each other, every single day. The days that followed felt like waking up in a life that didn't belong to me, and yet, it did. Not because of the office I now commanded or the salary that felt unreal, but because Olivia was there. Present. Alive. Smiling more often. Laughing, even. But happiness, I learned, never came without cost. Especially not in a world built on power and perception. The news of Richard Hayes' arrest made national headlines, shaking Orion's board to its core. Jonathan Blake managed to shield Olivia from the press, though the whispers never fully disappeared. They called her the unstable heiress, the damaged girl who let her emotions threaten the empire. What they didn't know, what none of them could know, was that she was the one who saved it. Despite her father's attempts to keep her out of the spotlight, Olivia took a seat at the table. She spoke up during meetings, challenged protocols, and introduced new mental health policies for employees, especially interns and entry-level staff, the people no one ever noticed. I watched her reclaim her voice. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was leading. Our nights were quieter, spent with books and records and the comfort of each other's silence. Sometimes, when the city went to sleep, she'd still wake up in a sweat, haunted by the edge of that rooftop. I'd hold her close until she fell back into the rhythm of my breathing. We never talked about those dreams, but she knew I'd be there when she opened her eyes. One evening, as I returned from a late strategy session, I found her in my apartment, barefoot, wearing one of my shirts, flipping through a photo album. She held up a picture of me from my college graduation, the one where I was smiling with a cheap diploma in my hands and borrowed confidence in my eyes. "You really didn't have anyone there with you?" she asked gently. "No. My mom left when I was a kid. My dad, well, he drank more than he spoke. I was on my own by the time I was 17. She didn't say anything at first. Then she reached across the table and held my hand. "You're not alone anymore." That was the night she kissed me for the first time. Not out of impulse or desperation, but because something had shifted, something quiet and steady that had been building between us for weeks. We didn't label what we had. Not yet. There were too many battles still ahead. Jonathan Blake tolerated me, but I knew he didn't trust me. Not fully. To him, I was still the boy from the basement office who got lucky. One wrong step, and I could lose everything. So I worked harder. Stayed later. Made sure every deal I signed, every word I spoke, was sharp enough to prove I belonged. Meanwhile, Olivia launched a company initiative called Project Rise, a mentorship program for employees dealing with burnout, anxiety, and depression. It was her way of turning pain into purpose. The program drew praise across industries. Magazines hailed her as a visionary. Investors called her a phoenix in heels. But with attention came danger. Anonymous messages. Threats. One email said, "Fall again, and next time, no one will catch you." I doubled security. Took over the driver's schedule. Moved her into my condo on the pretense of efficiency. But the truth? I just wanted her safe. One night, We were walking back from a charity gala, Olivia in a navy blue dress that made my heart stutter every time I looked at her, when a motorcycle roared out from the alley. I saw the glint of metal in the rider's hand, a pipe swinging toward her head. I didn't think. I threw myself in front of her. The pipe cracked across my shoulder, knocking me to the ground. Pain bloomed like fire, but I stayed on my feet long enough to get her behind the limo door. The attacker sped off, face hidden. Olivia dropped to her knees beside me, screaming for help. "Ethan! Stay with me, please." My vision blurred. "Hey," I whispered, "I told you I'd always catch you." I woke up in a hospital bed. Broken clavicle. Dislocated shoulder. But nothing permanent. Olivia never left my side. Not for a second. When Jonathan arrived, I expected anger, maybe in order to stay away from her. But instead, he sat quietly at the foot of the bed. "You protected my daughter with your life," he said. "I owe you more than I can repay." I shook my head. "You don't owe me anything. I love her." The words slipped out before I could second-guess them. Jonathan looked at me for a long time. Then he stood, nodded once, and said, "Then take care of her. Because if you ever fail, I'll make sure no one remembers your name." Fair enough. 2 weeks later, I returned to work. And Olivia held a press conference. She exposed everything. The threats, the sabotage, the corruption. She did it with poise, grace, and a fire that stunned the entire boardroom. Her courage inspired change, not just at Orion, but across the industry. She stood on the same rooftop where we first met, this time for a company video campaign about mental health. I stood behind the camera, watching her smile into the wind. "My name is Olivia Blake," she said. And once, I thought I had no reason to stay. But someone reached out and reminded me that even on the darkest nights, there's always a light. Sometimes, it's a stranger's hand. Sometimes, it's your own reflection reminding you to fight. And sometimes, it's love. I didn't need to be in front of the camera. I had everything I needed right there, watching her rise. Because in saving her, she saved me too. And now, we rise together. Months passed, and life settled into a rhythm that neither of us had ever known, one filled with quiet mornings, stolen kisses before meetings, and whispered dreams long after midnight. Olivia blossomed in ways that made the world take notice. Not just as the daughter of Jonathan Blake, or the survivor of a tragedy, but as a woman who had rewritten her story, on her terms. She officially took on the role of Executive Vice President of Strategy at Orion, with full voting power on the board. Her first move? Elevating Project Rise into a separate nonprofit arm that offered free mental health services to young professionals across the city. It wasn't just her legacy, it was her redemption. As for me, I became her right hand in both business and life. The promotion I'd been given as a reward for saving her life turned out to be the doorway to something bigger than I ever imagined. I no longer felt like the kid who didn't belong. I was building something real. Something worthy. But not everything came easy. There were still critics. Industry sharks who questioned her emotional stability. Investors who side-eyed our relationship, assuming it was built on scandal. "You're her charity case," one executive once spat at me behind closed doors. "She saved you to make herself feel powerful." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Olivia's work, and mine, spoke louder than any insult. And she never once treated me like a charity. If anything, she pushed me harder than anyone else ever had. She believed in me, completely, and that belief gave me the strength to silence every doubt. One evening, we found ourselves back on the rooftop. Not because of a crisis, but because it had become our place. The city stretched below us, vibrant and alive. Olivia leaned against me, her hair falling over my shoulder, her hands resting on mine. "I never told you what I was thinking that night," she said softly. "You don't have to," I murmured, brushing my lips against her temple. "I want to," she insisted. I wasn't just tired. I was angry. Angry at my father. At myself. At the world for not caring enough. I thought if I disappeared, maybe someone would finally notice. I tightened my grip around her. I noticed. She smiled, then slowly reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. My heart stopped. Wait, are you? No, she laughed. Relax. Not yet. I just wanted you to see this. She opened it. Inside was a simple silver band, engraved with 2 words, "You stayed." My throat burned. It's not a proposal, she said. It's a promise. That no matter how high we rise, or how far we fall, we hold on. Together. I took the ring in my fingers and kissed it. Then, without a word, I slid it onto her thumb. That night, we danced alone under the stars, no music but the sound of our hearts, no audience but the moonlight. For once, we weren't escaping anything. We were just living, freely, fully, and without fear. The story people knew was about a girl who tried to jump, and the boy who saved her. But that was just the beginning. The real story, the one that mattered, was about how 2 broken souls found each other, healed together, and built something stronger than either had ever dared to dream. And as we stood there, wind brushing against our faces, I realized something I'd never felt before in all my years of chasing survival, of striving to matter. I was finally, truly, home. Our story didn't end with that rooftop promise. In many ways, it only began there. Life moved forward, as it always does, but this time we weren't just surviving it, we were shaping it. Together. Olivia's nonprofit expanded faster than we expected. Within a year, Project Rise had offices in 4 cities, partnered with universities, and became the face of a new corporate wellness movement. She gave speeches to packed auditoriums, spoke with lawmakers, even made the cover of Forbes Women. The caption read, "From the Edge to the Empire, Olivia Blake's Second Life." She always brushed off the fame. "They're not applauding me," she'd say, "they're applauding the version of me that survived. The version you helped build." But I knew better. They were applauding her strength. Her honesty. Her refusal to hide the cracks. She didn't rise in spite of the fall, she rose because of it. At Orion, I was promoted again, Chief Strategy Officer. I earned it, not just because of my performance, but because I had something most of the board didn't, a genuine vision for what the future could look like. One where success wasn't defined by margin alone, but by impact. Some people resented our closeness. They whispered about favoritism. Said I was using her. That she was too distracted. Too in love. But we didn't answer with words. We answered with results. We won awards. Broke records. Raised the stock price. Launched programs that became the envy of the entire industry. But the moments that mattered most weren't in boardrooms or on magazine covers. They were quiet. Like when she brought home takeout after a 14-hour day and we sat cross-legged on the floor, laughing over fortune cookies. Or the morning I caught her wearing my oversized hoodie, humming along to a song she hated just because it reminded her of our first dance. Or when we built a bookshelf together and completely ruined it, but kept it anyway because we'd done it as a team. Love didn't come in grand gestures anymore. It lived in the mundane, and somehow, that made it sacred. Then came the day I knew I couldn't wait any longer. We were in Florence. Olivia had just finished speaking at an international summit. She wore a long, emerald dress that caught the light like stained glass, and as she stood on the balcony of our hotel, looking over the Arno River, I saw the same girl I met on a rooftop, and 1,000 new versions of her that had bloomed since. I walked up behind her, heart pounding harder than I ever thought it could, and slid a small box into her hand. She didn't open it right away. She just stared at me with those soft, stormy eyes. "Ethan," she whispered, "you don't have to prove anything." "I know," I said. "I just want to spend the rest of my life proving it anyway." She opened the box. This time, the ring was gold, simple, honest, and engraved with the same words, "You stayed." Tears welled in her eyes. Then she said the only word I'd ever needed to hear. Yes. The wedding was quiet, just family, close friends, and the city skyline in the background. Jonathan walked her down the aisle, his expression a complicated mix of pride and pain. He never said he approved, not in words, but as he placed her hand in mine, he squeezed my shoulder gently. And in that moment, I knew I had earned his trust. The hard way. We didn't throw rice or have a grand reception. We held hands and walked through the city like it was ours. Because it was. Every corner, every light, every rooftop, they were part of our story now. Years later, people still ask how we met. We usually just smile and say, on a rooftop. But the truth? We met in a moment of surrender. She was about to let go. And I was just holding on long enough for both of us. So no, I didn't just save a girl that night. I found my reason. I found her. Sometimes, late at night, I still wake up and look at her, just to make sure she's really there. Curled beside me, her breathing soft and even, strands of hair resting on my chest like silk threads weaving us together. I don't wake her. I just hold her tighter, heart full to the brim with the quiet gratitude of someone who almost lost everything before they even realized what they had. There are moments when I still wonder what would have happened if I hadn't taken the stairs that night. If I had walked right past the open door, buried in my own exhaustion. Would someone else have found her? Would she still be here? Would we exist? But those thoughts never linger long. Because life has a strange way of making sure the right souls crash into each other, even if it takes a storm, or rooftop, and a shared silence darker than midnight. Our story isn't perfect. Far from it. We still argue about the little things, like how she insists on drinking iced coffee even in the dead of winter, or how I always forget to take my shoes off when I come in. She's messy with her books, I alphabetize mine. She wants to adopt 3 cats. I'm allergic to fur. We bicker, we laugh, we compromise. That's love, I think. Not fireworks every second, but the steady, daily choosing of each other, over and over again. Olivia still goes to therapy, and she talks about it openly. She says healing isn't a destination, it's a practice. She still visits the rooftop sometimes, usually on quiet evenings when the city hums with life but her heart needs stillness. I go with her. We don't say much. We just sit. Sometimes we hold hands. Sometimes we cry. Sometimes we say thank you, to the universe, to fate, to each other. And sometimes, she looks at me and says, "You know, I don't think you just saved me." I always smile when she says that. No? She shakes her head. I think we saved each other. I know she's right. We took broken pieces, of hope, of pain, of trust, and rebuilt something that not even time can undo. And now we're building more. This year, we bought a small house near the coast. Nothing fancy. White shutters. A crooked mailbox. A lemon tree out back. We planted flowers along the walkway and painted the living room ourselves, splashing paint on each other more than the walls. It's a home filled with sunlight, second chances, and echoes of laughter. And in that home, just last month, Olivia placed my hand on her belly, her eyes shining. "You're going to be a father," she whispered. I didn't speak for a long time. I just felt the world tilt and steady beneath me. Then I pulled her close and cried, because I never thought I'd have something this whole, not after everything. A child. A future. A family. All born from the night I found a girl on the edge, and stayed. So if anyone ever asks me what love is, I won't point to rings or wedding photos or perfect days. I'll point to the dark moments. The ones we walked through together. The ones we chose to stay in, even when it hurt. Even when it would have been easier to run. That's love. That's us. And no matter where life takes us, through storms, through seasons, through the unknown, I'll keep choosing her. Because she was never just the girl I saved. She was the reason I learned how to live. Some stories end with a kiss. Ours began with a fall and a hand that refused to let go. Now, every chapter we write is stitched with quiet resilience. Not the kind that shouts or needs to be seen, but the kind that survives the weight of silence, of nights that are longer than they should be, of days when the past still presses against our ribs like a bruise that hasn't faded. But there's beauty in that kind of strength. Like the way Olivia hums when she waters the plants at dawn, barefoot, her bump just starting to show. Or how she leaves me sticky notes in my laptop, reminders not to miss lunch, or little doodles of our future child with wild hair and stubborn eyes. Or how, when no one is looking, she still reaches for my hand the same way she did on that first night, trembling but sure. People sometimes say we're lucky. That we found each other at the right moment. That the universe aligned. But I know better. It wasn't luck. It was choice. Every single day since that night, we've chosen each other. Through grief. Through fear. Through success that sometimes feels heavier than failure. Through board meetings and broken appliances and unexpected news at 3 a.m. We choose to show up, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's what love has become for us, showing up when the lights are off and the world is quiet and there's no applause, no audience. Just two people who have seen each other completely and said, still. You. Always you. Sometimes I still see that girl on the edge of the rooftop when I close my eyes. But now, I also see the woman she's become. The leader. The mother-to-be. The fierce, beautiful soul who took her pain and turned it into purpose. And where our child asks one day how we met, I won't give them the fairy tale version. I'll tell them the truth. That once, their mother stood on the edge of a building, ready to let go. And I walked into that night, carrying nothing but my own brokenness, and offered her my hand. Not as a hero, but as someone who knew what it meant to be unseen. To be tired. To wonder if it was worth it. And she took that hand. Not because she was weak, but because she was brave enough to try. That night didn't save her. She did. And by doing so, she saved me too. So now we build. We build a life filled with stories and silence and second chances. We build it slowly. Patiently. With all the love that once began with just a single word. Stay. And we did. We stayed. Through the seasons that changed around us and the versions of ourselves that kept evolving. Through the hard conversations that left us raw but real. Through the quiet Sundays with pancakes and the loud Mondays with stress and schedules. We stayed. Not because it was easy, but because we remembered the night it all began. The night everything could have ended, and didn't. Now, our home echoes with more than just our laughter. It holds the sound of baby feet padding down the hallway, the giggle of a child who knows only safety and love. Our daughter, Lily, has Olivia's eyes and my stubbornness. She was born on a rainy night, just like the one I found her mother on. Poetic, I guess. Or maybe the universe has a sense of rhythm. The first time I held Lily, I cried without shame. Olivia kissed my forehead and whispered, this is what we were always meant to become. And in that moment, I felt it, the full circle. From the edge of that rooftop to the center of this life we built. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were thriving. There are still days when the past creeps in, when Olivia's hands shake for no reason, or when I wake up from a dream of falling. But we talk. We hold each other. We never run from the shadows, we sit with them until they pass. Because healing isn't linear. It's a dance. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that's okay. Some nights, Olivia and I sit out on our porch after Lily's asleep, wine in hand, feet tucked under a shared blanket. We watch the stars blink into existence, and she leans her head on my shoulder like she did years ago on that cold rooftop. You ever think about what would have happened if you didn't stop that night? She asks me sometimes. I always give her the same answer. No. Because I did stop. And you're still here. That's all that matters. And it is. It matters more than all the promotions, the headlines, the whispers of envy or praise. What matters is us. This family. This life that almost wasn't. So if someone asked me now who I am, not what title I hold or what I've achieved, I'd say this. I'm the man who reached out his hand on the worst night of her life. I'm the man she trusted enough to take it. I'm the man who didn't let go. And I never will. Because sometimes, all it takes to change everything is a single moment. A single act of staying. And from that moment on, love does the rest. There's a quiet kind of magic in the life we live now, nothing flashy, nothing grand. Just the steady, everyday miracle of normalcy, the thing Olivia once thought she'd never have. Like Lily's sleepy voice calling for Mama in the middle of the night. Or the way Olivia hums while brushing our daughter's hair, soft and slow, like she's weaving safety into every strand. Or how sometimes, in the middle of a hectic day filled with deadlines and meetings, I get a photo on my phone, Lily with chocolate on her cheeks, Olivia smiling behind her. A caption below, "We're waiting for you." And I always come home. Always. Because this is home now. Not just a place, but a feeling. A promise lived out daily. A life built on the unlikeliest of beginnings. It's strange, sometimes, to think how the world sees us now. They know the headlines. The heiress and the assistant who changed everything. They know the glamour, the awards, the interviews. But they don't know the real story. They don't know that beneath every elegant photo is a girl who once stood at the edge and a boy who once felt invisible. They don't know how she used to wake up in tears, or how I used to pretend I wasn't terrified of losing her again. They don't know about the journal she keeps in the nightstand, filled with letters she wrote to herself on bad days, reminding herself that she chose to live. They don't know that some mornings, before the sun rises, we sit on the rooftop of our new home, coffee in hand, wrapped in silence, and remember. Not to dwell. But to honor how far we've come. And when Lily's old enough to understand, we'll tell her everything. We'll tell her about that night. About pain and darkness in the moment when hope was almost lost. But more importantly, we'll tell her what came after. We'll tell her that love isn't just about falling for someone, it's about catching them. Holding them steady when their world spins. Being the quiet voice that says, "You're not alone." We'll teach her that it's okay to break, as long as you keep reaching for the pieces. That the strongest people aren't the ones who never fall, but the ones who rise again, and again, and again. And when she asks, "How did you know she was the one?" I'll smile. Because I'll remember the wind on that rooftop. The silence. The fear. The fragile voice that whispered her name. And I'll say, because even when she was ready to give up on herself, something in me refused to let go. And that has made all the difference. We are proof that love doesn't always begin in the light. Sometimes, it begins on the edge of everything. With one step back. And two hearts moving forward. Together. Forever. Forever sounds like such a distant word when you're young, when you're barely holding yourself together, when your world is a mess of broken plans and bruised hope. Back then, forever seemed impossible to me. And to Olivia, it was almost a curse. She didn't think she'd live long enough to deserve it. But now, forever is 1,000 tiny moments we never thought we'd get to keep. It's Lily's tiny hand wrapped around Olivia's finger for the first time. It's the way she runs to the door when I come home, yelling, "Daddy," like it's the most important word in the world. It's late-night grocery store runs and spilled cereal in the kitchen and Olivia's head on my chest as we fall asleep, still fully clothed, because parenting is beautiful and exhausting in hours. Forever is watching Olivia become a mother. God, I wish I could explain what that looks like. She was already the bravest person I'd ever known, but when Lily was born, she became something more, gentle and fierce, patient and powerful, all at once. She reads to her every night, even when her voice is hoarse from meetings. She sings lullabies that are slightly off-key, but perfect in their imperfection. And sometimes, I catch her just watching Lily sleep, tears in her eyes, not of sadness, but of wonder. Because she almost never got this. And she knows it. We both do. Sometimes we still talk about that night, the rooftop. But now it's different. Softer. Like a scar that doesn't hurt anymore, but you still remember exactly how you got it. I don't regret it, she told me once. I looked at her, confused. Regret what? Standing there. Being ready to jump. Because if I hadn't been there, you wouldn't have found me. And I wouldn't have found you. It's a brutal truth. And a beautiful one. Life is strange like that. It breaks you so cleanly sometimes, only so the light can find its way in. And us? We became the kind of story we never thought we deserved. Not perfect. But real. Built from the edge of heartbreak and a steady climb back toward something better. Something lasting. Something we chose, again and again. One day, when we're older, maybe long after the headlines fade and the world forgets our names, I imagine us sitting on a quiet porch by the sea. Wrinkles in our hands, silver in Olivia's hair. Lily grown and maybe with children of her own. I'll take her hand, just like I did that first night, and I'll whisper the same truth I've carried since that moment she stepped away from the edge. I'm here. And she'll smile, because she knows. She's always known. In a world that moved too fast, in a life that once nearly slipped through her fingers, she found the one thing that never let go. Love. And not the kind that explodes in fairy tales. But the kind that stays. Through the worst. Into the best. All the way to the end of the story we wrote together. And even beyond.